Hello, and welcome, friends and mortal enemies. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Terror is a Mood podcast, a sibling account of true crime and paranormal activity. Kick back and let's set the mood with your hosts, Valerie and Melanie.
Hey Val, how's it going?
What up? It's fun.
Yay, we're alive. It's a nice day. How's the weather where you are?
It's freaking hot, man. I'm like sweating and I'm inside in a muscle shirt. I don't understand, but it reminds me of Texas, so I guess it's cool.
It's pretty cool here. Where I am is pretty flat, and I guess really windy. So we got a lot of good breeze.
Yes.
Breeze coming through.
I don't know if you knew this, Mel. Today is the first day of preseason football. Did I say that right, Mom? It's Dallas versus, I think, Pittsburgh tonight. So,
exciting. No wonder
go
Mom
Cowboys,
messaged
go! For Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everyone who's a Cowboys fan.
Ecstatic. Or a Steelers fan. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah,
sorry,
brother.
Mom. That's right.
You're split down the middle now, aren't you?
Oh, I don't care about either one.
Yep, yeah. Well, cool. I didn't know that. Definitely not into anything that is on live TV because I only have streaming services right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like a cool thing. You know how they are always like, "Are you ready for some football?" But I was gonna say, "Are you ready for some terror?" Which I think should
I think
be
that's
our
pretty
thing.
good. It could be a new episode transition, a new episode
That's
intro.
right. That's what it's gonna be now. I am super excited for my story today. I'm excited to hear yours. Do we need to give any warnings?
Yeah, we didn't tell each other what we were covering today, so that's fun.
I know, it's a surprise.
No, I don't think mine is terrible. I don't have anything too creepy in there. You know, just your ordinary ghosts. Some deaths.
Sweet. I love it.
Yeah.
I have some death as well, but it's mine's a pretty popular case. You might have heard of it. It's gonna be awesome. Really, I'm super excited.
Should we just jump right into it then?
Yes, but before we do,
I don't have a lot going on.
We should also remind you all, we are on Spotify and Apple. Rate and review us 5 stars. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars. You can even say they made me do this on the review. It really doesn't matter. Apple doesn't care what you write. They just want to see that you gave us 5 stars. So do it. Yeah.
Yeah, do it, and then complain to us about doing it at terrorisamood@gmail.com. Send us some stories, some feedback.
We're on Patreon, and we are going to start, right?
Yes, please. So, I don't know if you've heard about this, Val. Have you heard of the Hellfire Caves?
No. What is this?
Oh, yay! I'm
also,
so glad.
Can I apologize for, like, the dude bro that I sound like in the whole first episode? I didn't know that when I'm scared or, like, nervous, I laugh like Beavis or Butthead. So many times I heard myself, I'm like,
It's a guffaw. A guffaw.
It's horrible.
A guffaw. We have.
It's super sexy. It's why my husband married me, I think. Right?
Well, yep, I think so.
Okay, let's go on. I want to hear all about Hellfire?
Yeah, the Hellfire Caves.
I think that should be the name of our next band. Sorry, I'll stop that.
Hellfire. Future karaoke band.
Mm-hmm.
So it's located at West Wycombe in Buckinghamshire, southeast England. That's about 30 miles outside of London, England. And the Hellfire Caves are a series of tunnels commissioned by Sir Francis Dashwood in 1748 to supply chalk for a 5-kilometer road that's a little bit more than 3 miles between West Wycombe and High Wycombe.
Cool.
This was apparently completed to benefit the community as many farm workers at this time were impoverished due to a series of droughts and failed harvests. The workers were employed at a whopping 1 shilling per day, which at this time was enough, which at this time was enough to sustain a family in the Georgian era. The tunnels were all dug by hand, and they're regarded as an incredible feat of engineering today. So that's how they came about.
How long did it take?
This guy.
Do you know how long it took to do it by hand?
don't know how long it took them. Let's see, they started in 1748, and I think the club began around like the late 1740s. So maybe a couple of years.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah. Sir Francis Dashwood, this was the guy who had the tunnels commissioned and gave that opportunity to people in the area. He was the second baronet, a founder of the Society of Dilettanti. I believe that's how you say it. It's a British society that was founded in 1734, and it was composed of noblemen and scholars that sponsored the study of ancient Greek and Roman art and creation of new work in this style.
Fancy.
However, a little description about this from 1974 about this group, as told by Horace Walpole, an English writer, art historian, and Whig politician of this time, said, "This is a club for which the nominal qualification is having been in Italy, and the real one being drunk. The two chiefs are Lord Middlesex and Sir Francis Dashwood, who were seldom sober the whole time they were in Italy."
My kind of people.
Yep, so that just...
I'm drinking wine right now.
That just gives you an idea of what this... Oh, nice. The Society of Dilettanti was about. And in its day, the Hellfire Club was actually known as the Knights of Sir Francis of Wycombe, or the Brotherhood of Sir Francis of Wycombe, or the Order of the Friars of St. Francis at West Wycombe.
Right? It's a men's club? They couldn't figure out...
Definitely a men's club, a private members club.
Because they're men. Sorry, men.
Some people that were apparently members of this club were William Hogarth, the illustrator, John Wilkes, Benjamin Franklin, who visited the caves more than once, though he was not believed to have been a member, just a friend of Sir Francis Dashwood, Paul Whitehead, the famous poet, close friend of Dashwood's, and he served as the secretary and steward of the Hellfire Club, John Montague, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, and the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury. So some pretty high aristocratic people, of the time. The club motto, it is in French. I'm going to do my best, but I can't get guttural sounds in my throat. Fais ce que toi voudras, or do what you want.
I love that. We need that tattooed.
Fais ce que tu voudras. The voudras part of it, I cannot say. Type that in and hear it in Google Translate.
Or you can just tell us.
It's been said that the
pronouncing that correctly, because I love foreign languages. Sorry, Milk. Go ahead.
Let's see. It's been said that the Hellfire Club meetings included vast amounts of drinking, orgies, pagan rituals to include sacrifices, and the wearing of animal heads. According to historian Richard Felix, there was probably Satanism and devil worship. There are many pagan monuments throughout the cave, including the inner temple where the meetings were held. But none of that can be proven because Paul Whitehead, the poet, also the steward and the record keeper, burnt all of the records of the events that went on during their meetings in the days leading up to his death. In the account that I saw, it was literally the last 3 days of his life he spent burning records of what this club did, of their equipment.
They're up to no good.
Up to no good, most definitely.
Got it.
So the layout of the cave is as follows. There is no running electricity except in the parts now open to the public. You walk into the entrance hall and through to the steward's chambers and Whitehead's cave, named after Paul Whitehead. Through Lord Sandwich's circle, named after the 4th Earl of Sandwich, and Franklin's cave, so named after Ben Franklin.
Nice.
You'll go through to the banqueting hall, which is rumored to be the largest man-made chalk cavern in the world.
Dang.
Through to the triangle, to the miner's cave, and finally across a subterranean river named Styx. You know, the river Styx, Val? Do you know the story behind that?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, hold up. No, I don't know the story. Is that the thing to hell?
It's the river that separates, the mortal world from Hades. From the underworld. It's the river that you have to cross.
Hercules.
Yeah, So the inner temple lays 300 feet below St. Lawrence Church and Mausoleum. Some people say this was to signify heaven and hell because they're literally directly underneath each other.
Yeah.
In the 1750s, there was a running river here that you needed to cross by boat to get to the inner temple. And it was said that that is probably where all these rituals took place. It's the only place where the major members of the club were allowed, so not everybody had access to this room. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, why did they name it the River Styx? What does that mean? In the inner temple, there would be at least 12 men dressed in long white flowing robes. The abbot, as he were called, wore a scarlet robe with rabbit skin around the cuffs and the hood of the robe. The women that were invited were called nuns. However, they did less than saintly things and were more than likely sex workers and joined in all of that drinking and gluttonous activity that took place down there.
Well, let them. They're just having fun.
Yeah, they just want to eat a lot of food and then do each other. After Sir Francis Dashwood's death in 1781, the Hellfire Club disbanded and the tunnels fell into ruin. In the late 1940s to the early 1950s, the tunnels were renovated and turned into a tourist attraction. So that gives you an idea kind of how long that they were left abandoned, almost 200 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost 200 years.
Crazy. I don't even know how they were
underground.
Still standing.
They were just hanging out there.
But
no,
it's crazy.
The Hellfire Caves were known to be a place where a lot of debauchery went down. One account tells of a girl who was lured down to the caves. She is commonly referred to as Suki. One source said this was short for Susan.
Sorry.
Yeah,
True Blood.
I know. That's what I thought of. That's what I thought of too. But they said that was short for Susan. I thought that was a weird name to be short for Susan.
I agree.
The story goes that Suki may have been a barmaid at the local pub, the Jejorian Dragon, when she was approached by a group of young men who told her that her betrothed was waiting for her down in the tunnels. Another source said that Suki was very attractive and often rejected the advances of everyday guys because she wanted to marry into society, and she just so happened to be dating an aristocrat at this time. So him being down in the caves or in the tunnels wouldn't have been unfamiliar because it was a place where society already met. When she arrived, her betrothed was nowhere to be found. Only those men who told her to go down into the tunnels were there. And they began to taunt her, yelling and messing with her. Suki, in her defense, picked up a stone and threw it at them.
Hell yeah, girl.
Still, right? A little something. But these guys wouldn't quit. One of the young men picked up a stone and threw it back at her. The stone just happened to hit her right between the eyes.
Fuck.
One account says she fell to the floor and died there. And another says that the boys, after she had passed out, she did not die in the tunnels after she was struck. She passed out and they carried her back to the Jejorian Dragon, where she died in her sleep.
Damn.
Today, people have reported seeing a woman in a Victorian wedding gown wandering the tunnels, and some have reportedly heard weeping.
Dude, every
and one
fucking
of the paranormal...
time. I'm sorry, if you ever wear white or like a wedding dress, you're probably gonna get murdered because all these fucking ghosts are always like in Victorian white dresses. White. It's terrible. I'm sorry. Sorry, Suki.
No, that's okay. Yeah, she was ready to get married. In one of the videos that I was watching, it was a paranormal investigation. The psychic picked up on a young girl's energy. He described her energy as hopeless and disappointed, angry about something. And I was like, that is 100% Suki. Of course. Hello, I thought I was going to get murdered or married, and now I'm dead.
Yeah, dude.
Not even murdered. Like,
yeah.
Complete accident, I'm assuming. But
they
still,
threw a rock at her head
what
and
the
between
heck?
her eyes. That was not an accident.
I don't mean that they weren't aiming, but the whole thing, I'm sure, was just a prank that went terribly wrong.
I think they were assholes who knew they were going to hurt her, and I hate them, but I don't trust people, so. Sorry.
Another account of a ghost at the Hellfire Caves is that of Paul Whitehead, the poet. This really isn't so surprising when you find out that Paul Whitehead left his dear friend Sir Francis Dashwood £50 so that when he died in 1774, his heart could be stored in an urn at the mausoleum at West Wycombe.
Nice.
So, according to the Richard Felix, the historian, the heart has since been stolen, but the urn remains at the Hellfire Cave.
Who stole his
Another
heart?
account.
I think it's
I was about to get to that. Yeah.
Sorry.
Another, not cute, a little strange. Another account was that that the heart was stolen by an Australian soldier in 1829. So about 50 years after this guy has passed.
Jeez. Is it even a heart anymore? Or is it like super
That's what I was thinking. Like, what happened? How did you know? Why? Did you eat it? Were you hungry? What was going on?
Maybe.
So that guy has been seen walking around. And there have been reports of demonic growls from inside the caves. So when you are walking around in there, it's just black. It's black. There's a lot of nooks and caverns that nobody can really know what we're for. There's no accounts. Yeah. So a lot of paranormal activity is said to happen around in there. Things like stones being thrown and footsteps on the gravel. People have heard chanting coming from the inner temple.
Ooh, that is creepy.
Yeah, sounds likely because the whole setup, man. Right, being directly under a church. Some other features that are a little curious about the Hellfire Caves are the Gothic arches that are found throughout the cave. They don't understand why they were there, and that the actual layout of the caves themselves are often referred to as having the resemblance of woman's anatomy.
Woo!
And references to do with some pagan themes.
You know what? It's because women are life. Who runs the world, girls?
We are going to be uploading the I have a little map of the tunnels and that layout, so you can see that on our Instagram at Terror is a Mood Pod.
That's fucking cool.
With some photos. Yeah. But that's the Hellfire Caves. Really a little short
I've never heard
story,
of that.
But interesting. And you can visit them. They're really close to London. It's open. You know, parts of it have light.
All right.
Go and check it out and let us know what you see.
Are you ready, Mel? Our first live show should be at the Hellfire Caves.
It's a really cute setup outside.
I'm serious.
I don't mind that.
Gonna happen. Manifest that shit.
Let's make it happen.
That's really cool. I've never heard of that. I think it's cool that, Ben Franklin was there and just, famous people. And they were
I thought that was
sketch.
really interesting. Yeah.
Everyone back then was so sketch and creepy and...
Just anybody who had money was like, I don't know what to do with this money. Let's buy food. Really good food and rub it on each other.
That's
drunk,
right. With some sex workers.
Eat it off of each other.
Aye. Cool. I've never heard of that. I can't wait to see the photos to see what it looks like. I'm tempted to Google right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. It's pretty neat.
It is really cool, but I'm about to ruin that real quick.
Uh-oh.
Melanie, are you familiar with... And if you are, pretend you're not. No, just tell me the truth. It's fine. Are you familiar with the story of Betty Broderick?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that I love telling people stuff they don't know about. All of you, tune in. This is nuts. Okay, so we're going to start in 1947. Elizabeth Ann Betty Broderick, Betty was her nickname, was born in Eastchester, New York. She was the third of 6 children, born to a family of devout Roman Catholic parents. Marita and Frank Bisceglia were their names, so she was, Elizabeth Ann Bisceglia. She was raised in a quote-unquote aspirational family. So they weren't rich, but they were trying really, really hard to achieve that upper middle class status via their business success, education, and, quote, assiduous attention to proper manners and behavior. So that's the kind of life. Yeah. Betty grew up in. Her parents taught her, and I hate this, that her role in life was to become... What do you think, Mel?
A mother.
Well, not just that, but a good wife.
Yeah, it's like mother. A wife, a provider.
That's it. That was her only role in life, which is yikes. Anyhow, she did go on to attend and later graduate from the College of Mount St. Vincent in Riverdale, New York, which apparently was an all-girls college. So, that was in 1947.
What up, though?
Yeah, a woman. So, in 1965, a 17-year-old Betty met her future husband, Dan Broderick, who was 20, at a party in South Bend, Indiana. Apparently, Dan was an undergraduate at Notre Dame and introduced himself in what some consider like to be super clever and like cheeky, but I think is cheesy as hell. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
He introduced himself to Betty by writing Daniel T. Broderick III, MDA, on a napkin. What do you think MDA stands for?
I'm thinking of drugs.
Get your mind out of the gutter, Mel. Betty asked, "What does MDA stand for?" And he very smoothly replied, "Medical doctor, almost."
I was going to say MD, medical, like a doctor, yeah. But I was like, he just needs MDMA. That's where my head is because of my article I read earlier.
Yes, we'll talk about that in a little while. But that was the panty-dropping line that had her hook, line, and sinker. So Dan was from Pittsburgh, PA. He was the eldest son, also from a large Catholic family. So they started dating, and they become engaged while Dan was attending Cornell University Medical School, which was located in New York City at the time instead of Ithaca, where it apparently is now.
Cool.
And the pair, I mean, he was smart. He was at Cornell. The pair married on April 12th, 1969 at the Immaculate Conception Church in a lavish ceremony that Betty's mom had planned. And even that day, there was some, issues because apparently Dan didn't wear a tux.
Oh, wow.
I know. So they went on, they had their wedding ceremony, great, wonderful celebration, and the two went on to the Caribbean on a cruise for their honeymoon, and they also stayed with their friends in St. Thomas, which I have no idea where it is, but I think it's somewhere bougie. And Betty, it was 1969, so she was 19. Betty came back from her honeymoon pregnant.
Oh, man.
I know. I mean, cool, but damn.
So young.
So she continued. Yeah. She continued to work until the day she gave birth to her first daughter, Kim. I think she was a third grade teacher.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. So she continued to hold down more than one job and devoted herself to home and motherhood, which, she had always said were her only ambitions. She gave birth to 4 more children, a daughter called Lee, 2 sons named Daniel and Rhett, and an unnamed boy who died 2 days after he was born. And, Dan's in medical school, and Betty is working from home, taking care of the kids. But she's also working. She had multiple jobs. Apparently, they were virtually destitute. They lived on food stamps for a good while. They moved in and out of dorms and apartments. She had sold Tupperware, door to door in the cold of winter while holding her babies in her hands.
She did not stop. Yeah, she did not let that stop her.
She was happy to work while her man Dan went to school, and she just put in the work. So after Kim was born, and after Dan completed his medical degree, this man decided he didn't want to go on with medical training.
Oh.
And now he wanted to go to law school.
That's just twice as long.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention this, but at one point when Betty was talking about their living situation, they were pretty destitute, she said that they didn't even have a crib. They literally put the baby in a drawer with a blanket.
Oh, yeah.
That was the crib because they just were so, tight on money while he went to school. Anyhow, so he went to law school as well because he wanted to combine his medical expertise with a law degree and do medical malpractice. He was at Harvard Law School. Betty continued to be the main provider for the family with the help of a student loan from Dan. After all this, Dan was quickly hired by a law firm in San Diego, California, and the whole family moved to the community of La Jolla.
Nice.
Broderick, Betty, continued working part-time, again, selling Tupperware, Avon, whatever she could while raising the kids. And as she was doing that, Dan finally came to his greatness, I guess. According to the Los Angeles Times, the malpractice attorney who, graduated from Harvard Law and Cornell School of Medicine was making $1 million a year at his career's height.
Oh, wow.
So,
big bucks. Yeah.
They finally, made it.
It all paid off.
Betty was back at home where she cared for the 4 children. They went to prestigious private schools, and, she planned the family's busy social calendar, which, included going to parties thrown by a lot of La Jolla's elite. The couple also held 2 country club memberships, as well as another at a private resort that served as a hotspot for San Diego's upper crust. So the family was finally reaping the benefits of all the years of hard work that they endured. Dan was a high-powered malpractice attorney, and Betty was a stay-at-home mom who wore designer clothes and, just drove her kids around all over. Again, per the Los Angeles Times. They were a model couple for yuppies of the era until 1983. So in this year, Dan first laid eyes on a blonde, svelte Linda Colquina at a party given by lawyer friends in early 1983. Betty was standing near him and kind of was shocked because she heard Dan telling one of their friends, "Isn't she beautiful?" I'm not talking about Betty, I'm talking about Linda.
Yeah.
And this surprised Betty because Dan had never shown any kind of attraction or attention to other women ever. And so she was like, all right, weird. So at the time, Linda was a former airline stewardess who is now a freelance receptionist for another attorney. She didn't have any paralegal experience or any kind of medical malpractice experience. And from what I heard from different sources, she couldn't even type. She was bad.
And he offered her a job.
At being a receptionist. Yeah, we get there. We get there. At the time, Betty thought, whatever. It's just a passing fancy. She's beautiful and he's noticing. Whatever. They're not going to cross paths again.
Yeah.
Or so she thought. Of course, just as you predicted, Dan hired her as his personal assistant. So Linda Colquina was 21 years old the year that she met Dan. She was born to a hardworking middle-class laboring family in Salt Lake City. She had a high school education and had briefly worked for Delta Airlines, but she was fired. So the details are kind of sketchy, but according to author Bella Stumbo, she had been involved in an undignified scenario aboard a jetliner where she was coddling and sitting on the lap of a male passenger, apparently aggravating other passengers who complained about her.
Yeah, you're working. What are you doing, lady?
Girl, she's making that money. Maybe they could get tips back then. I don't know.
Another kind of money.
Yeah, so after she was fired, Linda earned money as a temporary receptionist for a bunch of clients, including a legal office. And so anyhow, she got the job working with Dan. At this point, Betty and Dan's marriage was already kind of rocky. Betty continually complained that Dan was an absent father and husband since he spent so much time working and then socializing with other attorneys. He was apparently at the office at 5 o'clock in the morning, and after the 5 o'clock hour, he was at bars or fancy restaurants, canoodling with other people, just trying to network. But he was never home.
Keeping those acquaintances, yeah.
So Betty really felt like she was a single parent of the 4 kids that they had. So anyhow, in the 1980s again, Dan hired Linda as his assistant, and they began a secret affair that lasted the next 3 years. I know. So Betty really suspected, she long suspected the affair, even though Dan denied it for a really long time. What I thought was weird about this...
3 years is a long time.
Yeah. What I thought was weird about this is that everyone mentioned that Linda looked exactly the way Betty did when they first met. So she was literally the younger version of Betty.
Oh, gosh.
Where Betty was. I know. It's so crappy. So anyhow, one of the things that happened is that they went on vacation to New York City in the summer of 1983, and Betty caught Dan, hidden away in the hotel lobby, calling his assistant over the phone. And then when they were, touring England on another vacation, she discovered Dan had telegraphed flowers to Linda while they were gone.
Gross.
But, I know. a big thing happened on Dan's 39th birthday. Dan seemed to be going through some kind of midlife crisis, and Betty was trying really, really hard to fix their marriage because, again, they were on the rocks, kind of. She felt like he was possibly cheating on her, but she also just thought, it's that time, it's the itch, he's been with me forever. We just need to, like, reignite this fire. So she
was hopeful.
Gotten, like, plastic surgery done. She had lost a bunch of weight. She was exercising more. She was really trying hard to, like, keep her man's attention. But anyhow, on his 39th birthday, Betty shows up at his office, unannounced, and she had brought a big bottle of champagne and, like, a dozen roses and was ready to celebrate. And when she walked in, another secretary told Betty, like, oh, Dan is out, and so is Linda, and I don't know where they are. And Betty was already like, what's going on? So she waited, because it was 11 o'clock at the time, so she waited for Dan to return. So Betty was walking around, and she noticed in Dan's office that there were, like, crumbs of a cake on his desk, empty wine bottles and balloons, so just clearly evidence that there was a birthday celebration that had happened already.
Mm-hmm.
And she also looked into Linda's office, and she saw a picture of a teenage Dan hanging over the woman's chair in Linda's office.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, neither Dan nor his assistant, quote unquote, Linda, returned to the office that afternoon.
Oh, man.
And Betty waited for him. Yeah. So she drove home and marched straight to his closet, and she began ripping out all of his expensive tailor-made clothes. And then she brought them all. She made her way to the backyard, and as her kids watched, she set the clothes on fire.
Oh, yeah. That sounds about right.
I know. As the smoke billowed and thousands of dollars of Dan Broderick's expensive clothes went up in flames, her children were just watching and crying, which is so sad.
Yeah.
Just sad to hear.
You don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And apparently when Dan eventually got home that evening, he didn't even get mad at her over his clothes. He just told Betty, like, oh, you're crazy. You just have an overactive imagination. Like, nothing's going on. What's wrong with you?
Oh, no. That's the worst thing you can do.
He was totally gaslighting her. Mm-hmm. Like, he was just like, what? No, you're nuts. Nothing's going on.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I know. So the marriage continued to deteriorate, with Betty constantly accusing Dan of having an affair and him repeatedly denying it. Eventually, though, Dan moved out of the house.
Oh.
And he bought a house of his own.
Yep, it's happening.
And then, to Betty's surprise, he took custody of the 4 children. But Betty was trying to, like, get back at him. Once he moved out, she would randomly drop off the kids at his house, like, one at a time, whether it was in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, without telling him. And sometimes he wasn't home for hours because he was working or canoodling with Linda. But she would pretty much just desert her child on the porch.
Yeah, I was like, that's just hurting your kid at this point.
I know. She was trying to, quote unquote, teach Dan a lesson because she thought that if he just realized how much she did for them as a family, like, he'd want her back. But that was dumb, and it ended up working against her because he did, gain custody of the 4 kids.
Oh.
So after that, he finally admitted to the 3-year affair, and he got a restraining order against Betty.
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
He got a restraining order against Betty, and he filed for divorce. So, of course, Betty was devastated and hurt, and then there was a huge acrimonious divorce where Betty felt that she was unfairly treated, which was definitely true because Dan was a lawyer. He had so many legal connections and so much influence in that community. Broderick versus Broderick became one of the ugliest divorces in the U.S., gaining so much notoriety that Oprah Winfrey, the Queen herself, even contacted Betty to secure an interview on her show, and the topic was ugly divorces or something like that. And Betty was like, nah, sister, not right now. I don't want to. I'm not. She didn't want to air it. I think Betty was really in denial over her marriage. Like, she wanted him to come back. But
yeah, it sounds like this lady gave him the best years of her life, and then he was like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm good now. I got everything I want.
I know. So, before everyone's eyes, Betty totally just became unraveled. She began to fight back with a vengeance. I guess one afternoon when she was stopping by their old house to visit the kids, or I guess the new house to visit her kids, she saw a homemade Boston cream pie on the counter.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "What is this?" And the housekeeper had said that Linda had dropped it off for Dan because it was his favorite. So Betty, you know, not petty at all, proceeded to carry this pie upstairs to his closet, and she spread the pie all over his bed and his closet full of like fancy schmancy clothes because
It
she was
was his
just
favorite, right? She was just helping him out.
enraged. I know. I was like, that's not a bad way to go to have pie all over my clothes. Anyhow, so Dan got home, and again he had the restraining order issued to keep his wife off of the premises. He didn't want her at the house at all. 2 days later, regardless of the restraining order, forbidding Betty to step foot in what I guess it was their old house. She threw a wine bottle through the window. It was empty. And she had so many, like, reckless behaviors, obviously because she was heartbroken. And the police were called, but they really just refused to become involved in their disputes because they just thought it was like domestic battles among the rich who were bored and had nothing better to do. So Betty's behavior became even more neurotic. And, without question, she was losing the only world she ever had. She had dreamt of and like prepared mentally, emotionally, spiritually for this happy marriage and happy life as a mom, and it was all slipping out from beneath her feet. So, their house, the family dinners, the backyard barbecues, all the fancy clubs with all their fancy people, her husband, were gone. And I guess Betty years later said in her Lexicon interview that if Dan had just been honest with her from the start, she may have coped better, but he seemed to be playing and enjoying the mind games he was putting her through. So after, he just seems like an asshole. So after Dan left Betty and the family, Betty just was obsessed with anger and vengeance against her husband. So among other behaviors that later worked against her in court, she repeatedly left obscene messages on the answering machine. And she frequently abused him and Linda in recorded telephone conversations with her children, of whom she made demands regarding their behavior and attitude towards her father and Coquina. So she left these answering machine messages, and everyone in the house heard it, including the kids, which I thought was shitty of Dan. But I feel like he was a lawyer and he knew just how to like leverage that power over the kids, over whatever. He seemed like the sane, rational person, where Betty was just crazy and just a woman, scorned, and it was just really bad. But
he was keeping his image, and she was falling apart.
She was falling at the seams, like just falling apart. So one of the other famous incidents that happened is that Betty drove her vehicle through the front door of Dan's new house after he sold the family house that they had originally owned without Betty's consent. Which I thought was pretty shitty because she just drove. It was a brick house, so she like broke through the doorway with her car, but her kids were home when that happened, at his house. And I just thought that was really reckless. Like, she could have hit one of the kids. She didn't know who was there.
Yeah, there was no telling what could have happened.
Yeah, she just became, like, her behavior just became increasingly violent. And the only way she knew how to fight back against Dan was to vandalize his house, leave him these vulgar messages, and just to complain about, to anyone who would listen about, Dan's philandering. Dan, of course, as I mentioned, was able to keep a cooler head, and he definitely used, like, his legal expertise against Betty regularly. He had Betty hauled into court when Betty would violate the restraining order Dan had against her. After one hearing, Betty was imprisoned for 3 days.
Oh, man.
And I know. So everyone watching, Dan was just egging Betty on, exacerbating her already unstable demeanor, instead of showing her sympathy and assisting her in, like, getting the help she needed, because she was clearly having, like, a mental break. But he just kind of, he just kept feeding fuel into the fire to see her.
Yeah, he enabled it.
Yeah. And at the time, Dan was paying Betty $9,000 a month in alimony. And that would eventually turn into $16,000 per month while he was living with Linda.
Wow.
So throughout it all, Betty was still naively hopeful that Dan would come to his senses and come back home. So this long drawn divorce was finalized in 1989, 4 years after Dan had filed for it. A lot of people thought that Dan dragged out the divorce for 4 years on purpose because in California there was this little known legal concept called Epstein credits, which works to thwart any financial settlement entitled to Betty. So by the time the divorce trial was over, because of Epstein credits, Betty's share of community property had been substantially reduced. So it's just like a special, like, sneaky provision in California divorce law that, of course, Dan knew about because he was a lawyer, that says that the supporting spouse, or himself, could technically charge the dependent spouse, Betty, for 1/2 of all community debts accumulated not from the date of divorce, but from the date of separation. And if there's a substantial amount of time, like in this case 4 years, the dependent spouse may actually accumulate enough Epstein credits to effectively cancel out any share of their community property, which might have come to her had the divorce been finalized immediately.
That is...
But because he was able to draw it out, he didn't have to give her as much
crappy.
Fucking money. I know, he's awful. So, in the case of the Brodericks, legal maneuverings and delays postponed the divorce trial again and again and again. And Betty, at one point, represented herself without an attorney, which was an awful idea considering she didn't have any law degree experience, and Dan was like one of the best lawyers in California at the time. So she just kept trying to say, like, kept trying to play the victim, saying that everything was really unfair, and Dan, had a bunch of clout in that local legal arena. So she was just losing. She was just like digging a hole for herself. And Dan had apparently closed off the divorce trial from everyone. The courtroom door windows were literally covered up with paper, so no one could watch.
Mm-hmm. That's insane.
One of the sad things I heard during the trial is that they were playing, recorded phone calls and messages from, before the divorce was final.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the recorded calls was when their son Danny Broderick was 11. And in this call, Betty was recalled saying, she admitted that she could never change because she hated Daddy. She also repeatedly called Linda a bitch, to which this young little Danny replied, "If you cared about your family, you'd stop using bad words." And Betty says, "He's absolute scum. He cheated and lied and fucked around. You have no reason to be mad at me. I didn't cause any of this. Daddy and the bitch," referring to Linda Broderick, "caused all of this." She's talking to her 11-year-old. And Danny Broderick tells his mother in the call, "We want to live with you, Mom, but you're making it harder for all of us. You probably don't care because all you want is your money." And then at the end of that call, Betty Broderick is heard telling her son, "I wish Daddy would just die and Linda would just get drunk and drive her car off a cliff." Which is awful.
That's pretty rough stuff. But also she's being screwed over, so I'm sorry, kid, that you had to see that. But Mama's whole life just turned upside down. I see both sides.
I know, but still, like, protect your kids. They have nothing to do with it. I think that's awful of her. Like, it's just awful. Okay, so at the end of the trial, Judge William Howitt had accepted all of Dan's proposed numbers, and he ruled that Betty actually owed Dan $750,000 in Epstein's and cash advances.
Oh, man.
Which had accrued between the time Dan moved out and the date the divorce was final on January 30th, 1989. Which is just awful. So I guess at the very end, Dan Broderick, a multimillionaire and the father of Betty's 4 children, was ordered to pay his wife of 20 years less than $30,000 in cash.
Oh, no.
Total. And mind you, she was getting $16,000 a month in alimony. And he had bought her a house in La Jolla.
But alimony only counts for while they're getting divorced, right?
No. Alimony is until she remarries.
Oh.
I thought.
I thought it was like during a certain time frame.
No, I think it's only until she gets remarried. But so Dan also won custody of the children again, and of course Betty was devastated and felt that her life was over. So on April 22nd, mind you, they got divorced January 30th of 1989. On April 22nd, 1989, 10 days after what would have been Dan and Betty's 20th anniversary, Dan and Linda were married.
Oh.
So, I know. I mean, surprise, surprise. So, there were different accounts that I read, but a lot of them mentioned that they had actually hired security at their wedding, and that Dan's friends and even Linda, the bride-to-be, had even asked Dan Broderick, to wear a bulletproof vest at his wedding because they were just afraid. But he refused, insisting that, Betty wasn't going to ruin his wedding. This was going to be the happiest day of his life. So, let's go back to 1 month before Dan was going to marry Linda. Betty apparently claimed the need for protection as she was now living alone as a single woman, so she bought a Smith & Wesson revolver. She took shooting lessons, and again I read that she was like an expert marksman.
Wow.
And she carried the gun with her most of the time and made threats to shoot Dan. Even showing her daughter, like, I got this gun, I'm going to kill your dad.
Yeah, she was not in a good state.
Which is horrible. I know she wasn't in a good place, but the kids, just leave the kids out of it. They have nothing to do with it. Anyhow, 8 months after buying this gun and 7 months after Dan and Linda were married, some shit went down. So Betty had gained entry to her ex-husband's home in Marston Hills with the key that she had taken from the purse of her eldest daughter, Kim. Oh. And, she had a restraining order. She wasn't allowed to be on the premises, but
yeah.
At 5:30 a.m. on the morning of November 5th, 1989, 2 days before Betty's 42nd birthday, Betty shot and killed Dan and Linda while they slept. And apparently, allegedly, Dan's last words were, "Okay, you shot me, I'm dead." And there were allegations that during the shooting, Dan had tried calling for help by reaching for, the phone that was normally set up in the bedroom, but Betty had removed it prior to the shooting. Betty had shot all 5 bullets from her gun. 2 bullets hit Linda in the head and chest, killing her instantly. 1 bullet hit Dan in the chest as he apparently, again, was reaching for that phone. 1 bullet hit the wall, and 1 bullet hit a nightstand. Dan was 44 and Linda was 28, and they both died. So,
wow.
I know. After the shooting, Betty turned herself into the police. She never denied that she had, pulled the trigger 5 times. But during her trials that would follow, she denied that she had any intention of murdering the couple when she broke into their house. Of course, people were asking her, why? Why did you bring a shotgun into the house that night? And she said, I just wanted him to listen to me. She claimed that her intention was to make him listen, and if he wouldn't, she would commit suicide and splash her brains all over his damn house. So, when pressed for an answer, as to why she didn't commit suicide after shooting Dan and Linda, she stated that she didn't have any bullets left. It only had 5, and she shot all 5. Yeah. She also claimed later that she had shot her ex-husband in the heat of passion as soon as she entered the bedroom, because when she walked in, Linda started screaming, "Call the police." And Betty alleged that she had never planned to kill them and that her crime was never premeditated. And I guess she said the movement that she made into their bedroom woke them up, and they moved, and Linda screamed, "Call the police," and she said no, and she just fired the gun, and this big noise went off, and then she grabbed the phone and got the hell out of there. But she said she wasn't even in the room. She just heard the explosion, and she moved, and the gun went off, and it was like, ah! And it was that fast. She just, wasn't making any sense. She was just like, this is what happened. And I freaked out. Linda screamed, "Call the police." And she fired the gun, not knowing where she was shooting, in the dark bedroom. But some people had said that because she was a sharpshooter, and she shot Linda in the head, perfectly, that was just bullshit. And she knew exactly what she was doing. Mm-hmm. Linda and Dan are listed as buried together at the Greenwood Memorial Park in San Diego. But according to Greenwood personnel, Dan's grave is alone, with Linda buried somewhere else. even though they're named on, like, the memorial markers. So, Betty killed these people. Let's move on to the trials because, she did survive. She didn't do anything to herself. She had hired Jack Early to defend her, and the state of California was represented by prosecutor Carrie Wells, and Betty's defense was that of battered women syndrome, pretty much stating that she was driven over the edge by years of psychological, emotional, and mental abuse at the hands of her philandering husband, Dan Broderick, and her lawyer had portrayed her as a woman who sacrificed her entire being in order to be nothing more than a perfect mother and a perfect wife to 4 children and her successful husband. And, that was true. Jack even mentioned...
Her family didn't set her up for a man that was going to leave.
I know. Like, that was her whole life. She did it.
Yeah.
So her attorney showed how Betty held down 5 jobs in the early years of their marriage to help her young husband get through medical and then law school. And he insisted that, without Betty's help, Dan would never have become the successful attorney that he was. Betty, by many witness accounts, was truly a perfect mom and a hardworking, loyal wife. And according to her lawyer again, Dan cold-heartedly traded Betty in for a younger model by cheating on her behind her back for 3 years with Linda Colquina, ultimately divorcing Betty, getting sole custody of the kids, and then marrying Linda in 1989. So after years of Dan's lies, legal bullying, and clout as the president of the San Diego County Bar Association, taunting Betty, that Betty just snapped, and she committed the murders without premeditation. So Carrie Wells, again, was representing California. She portrayed Betty as a cold-hearted, selfish, narcissistic murderer who planned and schemed to kill her ex-husband for quite some time. She played all the phone messages that Betty had left on Dan and Linda's answering machine. She mentioned that Betty had repeatedly vandalized Dan's house and that she even had Betty's oldest daughter, Kim, testify about how angry Betty was and how unrepentant she was after the murders. Like, she just had no remorse. Carrie Wells argued to the jury that Betty was out of control, dangerous, and callous, and she was even quoted in a magazine saying, "I've had my fill of Elizabeth Broderick. She was not a battered woman. She was getting $16,000 a month in alimony. She had $1 million La Jolla house, a car, and this is news to me, but apparently Betty had a boyfriend the whole time. The whole time she was tormenting Dan, Betty had a guy that she was living with.
What?
Which I had never heard before.
Was he the one egging her on? Yeah, that's a good idea, babe.
I don't know, but I'm also like, Betty, you can't be like, I want my man back, but have her boy at home. Anyhow, Carrie Wells, the lawyer for California, said she sees abused women every day with broken bones and smashed faces. Give me a break. Betty wasn't one of them. So, the first trial ended in a hung jury when 2 of the jurors were trying to hold out for manslaughter, citing lack of intent. One of the jurors was quoted as saying, "I only wonder what took her so long." Not that they had those accents in California, but that's how I hear it. Like, all the women out there are like, I would have shot his ass too. Don't shoot your husband, even if he cheats on you. Divorce him. And take him for all he's got.
And then go live your life happily.
Right? So,
away from a man who did not appreciate you.
Yeah, so that first trial was a mistrial. Betty Broderick was retried a year later with the same defense attorney and prosecutor. And it was pretty much just like a replay of the first trial. Even though Jack Early had maintained that Judge Thomas Whelan severely restricted Betty's defense in the second trial, while simultaneously allowing the prosecution's case to expand. So he was like holding Betty's defense back, but letting the prosecutors go crazy with their evidence. Both trials definitely focused on Betty Broderick's state of mind. And at the time, the courtroom drama was just like a wronged woman's dream. Carrie Wells was definitely more successful in the second trial when the jury returned a verdict of 2 counts of second-degree murder. Betty was sentenced to 2 consecutive terms of 15 years to life, so consecutive, one after the other, plus 2 years for illegal use of a firearm, which was the maximum under the California law. Betty was incarcerated since the day she committed the murders at that time. Like, she was in jail the whole time.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So all throughout the trial.
Yes. So Betty Broderick is serving out her sentence at the California Institution for Women in Corona, California. In January of 2010, her first request for parole was denied by the Board of Parole Hearings because She didn't show any remorse and didn't acknowledge any wrongdoing. And Richard Sachs, a San Diego prosecutor who, handled her so-called live hearings, said, and I quote, "She was totally not remorseful, didn't even try." And Betty Broderick was denied parole again. Well, she was denied parole on 3 occasions. The last time was in 2017 when a 2-person parole board panel ruled that Betty would not be eligible for parole for another 15 years, which is like the max you can delay a parole hearing, unless she met certain requirements. Her next parole hearing is slated for 2032, when she'll be 84 years old. And
wow.
Yep, that's pretty much it. Of course, with the court, people trying to watch the court hearings, they were broken into 2 camps. Apparently, they were known as Betty Boosters and Betty Bashers. So there were those who were like, damn straight, she was a battered wife. Dan screwed her over, like, good riddance that he's gone. And then, of course, there were people who were like, she was nuts. Like, what did she do? How could she have done this to him? And let's see. Dan, even after this happened, of course, he was so well regarded in that legal community in California that the library of the Bar Association building was renamed the Broderick Room after he died. And I just kept some quotes that I thought were interesting. At one point, Betty had said, "I realize now that he was right when he said our battles would continue until one of us was dead," which I just thought was really chilling, that was something he said. And then I also saw another article that said, Betty's definitely not a villainess or a heroine by any means. Some women's groups use her case as an example of how not to give oneself totally to a man. But that's hindsight, and of course hindsight's always 20/20. The fact remains that she did. She gave everything to Dan, and while she lived what she unfortunately thought was the American dream, the perfect life of an American woman and wife in the total American dream, there was a reality check waiting to dent the armor of her Prince Charming. And this I thought was really, this is all the same article that I just thought was like so poetic and flowery. When talking about Prince Charming, it said, "His armor, once scratched, would clank off piece by piece to reveal to her a man whom she never knew. And Betty, once scratched, revealed to the jester knight the nakedness of a woman in insulted love." And that was it.
Definitely flowery.
I know, and I loved it. So, her story was made into a television film on Lifetime and like CBS. A Woman Scorned, the Betty Broderick story. And then her final fury, Betty Broderick, the last chapter. And I guess Meredith Baxter won some Emmy for playing Broderick one time. The most recent in the media stuff is that Dirty John on Netflix, their 2nd season is Betty Broderick's story, which I haven't watched, but I heard is really good, but also, has a lot of, what do they call it, artistic license. Like, they just kind of went their own way with stuff. But Betty would eventually be on Oprah twice, to talk about her murder, like the murders of her ex-husband and Linda, and that's it. That's the story of Betty Broderick. It's insane and very well known. So what are you? Are you a Betty Booster or a Betty Basher?
Probably Booster.
Look, I get it. I just want to say to all my exes who are listening to this, y'all said I was crazy, but I was no Betty Broderick, so you got lucky. I always think this. Every time I'm like, I could have been way worse. I wasn't crazy.
But none of your exes took 20 years of your life.
True that.
That was an intense story, Val, and we certainly have viewpoints, so message us and let us know what your viewpoint was on this. Are you a Betty Basher or a Betty Booster?
You can follow us on all the social medias. We have a Twitter, we have a Facebook, we have a Discord, an Instagram. You can follow us on there to see pictures and stuff from the episodes, like Melanie's map of the women vaginal inspired
Hellfire Caves.
Yes. Please, please, please rate and review us just to get us heard by more people. We can't wait to just keep sharing these amazing stories with you guys.
If you have any suggestions, let us know. And if you have any stories you'd like to share for future listener episodes, please send them to terrorisamood@gmail.com. Spook you later.
And remember, moody people live longer. Bye.
Bye. End recording.